The Awakening. The galaxy had always been a place of order, controlled by the Galactic Coalition, an alliance of powerful alien races. For centuries, humanity had been little more than a footnote in galactic history. Earth was nothing more than a distant memory, a world forgotten by the stars. The once great human fleets were long gone, reduced to myths told only by a few ancient historians. No one believed that humanity had anything left to offer. But something was about to change. Deep in the dark void of space, far beyond the reach of the Coalition's patrols, something ancient stirred. It was a colossal ship, larger than anything the Coalition had ever seen. Its hull, once a sleek and powerful symbol of human might, had long been covered in the dust of time. The Titaness Ascendant, a ship thought to be lost forever, was waking up. The ship's sensors flickered to life, its engines slowly coming back online. The hum of its power systems reverberated through the cold silence of space. It had been dormant for centuries, hidden away in the far reaches of the galaxy. Yet now, as if it had never slept, the Titaness Ascendant was alive again. Inside the ship's command center, a small team of human engineers and soldiers stood ready. They had been tasked with something no one thought was possible: reactivating the Titaness Ascendant. The ship was an ancient relic, a weapon of unimaginable power, and it was humanity's last hope. Captain Sarah Daniels was the leader of the team. She had spent her entire career studying the history of the ship, learning everything she could about its weapons, systems, and hidden secrets. She knew that reactivating the Titaness Ascendant was no simple task. It had been designed for a different time, a time when humanity was at the peak of its power. But with Earth lost to the ravages of time and space, there was no choice. They had to awaken the ship, and they had to do it now. "Captain, the ship's systems are stabilizing," Lieutenant Miller reported, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and caution. "The engines are coming back online. It's working." Captain Daniels nodded, her heart racing. "Good. Keep monitoring all systems. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." The Titaness Ascendant was not just any ship. It was a supercarrier, a floating fortress with the ability to lay waste to entire fleets. It had been built to protect humanity when they were at the height of their power, but now it was a ghost ship, a symbol of a forgotten age. The crew knew that the technology on board could be beyond even the most advanced alien races, but they had no way of knowing how it would respond to being reawakened after so long. As the minutes passed, the ship's systems continued to hum, and the eerie silence of space was slowly replaced with the sounds of the Titaness Ascendant coming to life. Its massive engines roared, and the ship began to shift, slowly rising from the dormant state it had been in for centuries. It was as if the ship had been waiting, biding its time for the right moment to awaken. On the bridge, Captain Daniels watched the monitors, her eyes fixed on the data streams. She knew that the moment the ship was fully operational, they would have no time to waste. The galaxy had changed since humanity had disappeared, and they couldn't afford to wait for the Coalition to notice them. They had to act fast. Then a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Captain," Lieutenant Miller said, her tone suddenly more urgent, "we've received a signal. It's coming from the Galactic Coalition's communications network." Daniels turned, her face growing serious. "What kind of signal?" "It's a broadcast," Miller replied. "It's encrypted, but it's definitely from the Coalition. They're talking about us, the Titaness Ascendant." Captain Daniels felt a chill run down her spine. The Coalition had no idea what they were about to face. No one knew that the ancient human fleet was still out there, waiting to return. "They've found us," Daniels said, her voice barely a whisper. "We need to move. Now." The crew quickly shifted into action, running through their protocols to prepare the ship for combat. The Titaness Ascendant was more than just a warship. It was a symbol of humanity's strength, their pride, and their ability to survive against all odds. Outside the ship, the stars shimmered, but the crew knew that time was running out. The Galactic Coalition was powerful, but they were about to face something they could never have imagined. The Titanus Ascendant was back, and it wasn't going to be ignored. As Captain Daniels gave the order to power up the weapons systems, a new sense of purpose filled the bridge. They weren't just awakening a ship, they were awakening humanity's place in the galaxy. The Coalition's fear. The Titanus Ascendant was fully awake now, its engines humming with power, its weapons systems ready. But as the crew on board reveled in their success, something far larger was happening in the galaxy. The Galactic Coalition had just received a terrifying piece of news. The ancient human Supercarrier, thought to be nothing more than a myth, was no longer dormant. It had returned, and the implications of this discovery were far-reaching. On the main command ship of the Coalition, an emergency meeting was called. The leaders of the Coalition's various races, each more powerful than the last, were gathered in a high-tech war room. They were all stunned by the news. A human ship, a ship that had been forgotten for centuries, was now operational, and it was far more advanced than any of the Coalition's fleets. It wasn't supposed to be possible. The humans were thought to be wiped out, their fleets destroyed, their influence fading into the past. And yet here they were. The Titanus Ascendant had reawakened, and with it, a terrifying reminder of what humanity was once capable of. They must be weak, Commander Zorak of the Calyx said, his voice calm but filled with skepticism. No fleet of theirs could survive for so long. It's nothing more than a relic. A low growl came from the Threshan representative, Tarak. I disagree. This is not just a relic. It's a ship of unimaginable power. We need to deal with it before it becomes a threat. We've been monitoring their movements, said Admiral Ralthian of the Coalition fleet, tapping the holographic table. They're not advancing on any major system, but we can't ignore the possibility that they're preparing something. If they've awakened that ship, then they have resources we never imagined they still had. The Coalition had long ruled the galaxy with fear, using their overwhelming fleets to crush any resistance. They had never even considered that the humans, once their rivals, could return to challenge their dominance. Now, it was clear. They had been wrong. Commander Zorak shook his head, trying to calm his fellow leaders. The Titanus Ascendant can't be as dangerous as you think. If it was truly a threat, why hasn't it made its move already? But Admiral Ralthian, who had long studied human tactics and warfare, was not convinced. This is not just a ship. The Titanus Ascendant was designed to lead the human fleets, but it was not their only weapon. Its systems are beyond our understanding. If they are reactivating it, they may be trying to send a message, or preparing for war, Tarak added grimly. The debate grew heated as each leader tried to convince the others of their point of view. But deep down, they all knew one thing. Humanity's return would be a game changer. They couldn't afford to take chances. Prepare the fleet, Admiral Ralthian said finally, his voice filled with resolve. We'll send a warning, and if necessary, we'll strike before they can organize any further. Meanwhile, on the Titanus Ascendant, Captain Sarah Daniels stood before the massive window of the bridge, looking out into the stars. The ship's powerful engines hummed beneath her feet, and the sense of awe and fear among the crew was palpable. They had succeeded in reawakening the ship, but now they had a new challenge. The Coalition had taken notice. We'll have to act fast, Daniels muttered, her hand resting on the console. The Coalition will come for us. They won't just let us slip into the galaxy unnoticed. She turned to her crew, who were all working frantically at their stations. Get me a full systems check. I want to know everything that's working and everything that's not. We need to be prepared for anything. Lieutenant Miller, who had been working tirelessly to keep the ship's weapons online, looked up with a worried expression. Captain, the Coalition is already mobilizing their fleet. They've intercepted the ship's signal. We don't have much time. Captain Daniels took a deep breath. This was it. The moment they had all been waiting for. Humanity's place in the galaxy was about to be restored, whether the universe was ready for it or not. Activate the weapons systems, Daniels ordered. "We're not going down without a fight." As the crew followed her orders, the ancient human warship began to pulse with energy. The Titanus Ascendant was more than just a ship. It was humanity's last hope, and its awakening had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Galactic Coalition had underestimated humanity's power once before, and they were about to make that mistake again. But now the stakes were higher than ever. The Coalition's fleet was on its way, and they would not rest until the Titanus Ascendant was destroyed. As the Titanus Ascendant powered up, Captain Daniels looked out into the stars. She knew the odds were stacked against them, but she also knew one thing: humanity had always fought against the impossible, and this time it would be no different. Preparing for war. The stars outside the Titanus Ascendant glistened like distant gems in the cold void of space. Inside the ship, there was no glimmer of wonder. The crew was focused, their minds sharp with anticipation. Captain Sarah Daniels stood at the bridge's command center, her eyes scanning the rapidly changing readouts. The tension was thick, suffocating. Every movement, every sound aboard the ship felt heavier now. The Galactic Coalition was coming, and they were ready to destroy what they still thought of as a relic. "We don't have long," Daniels said, her voice steady but sharp. "We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us." Lieutenant Miller, who had been working tirelessly to bring the ship's weapons online, turned toward her. "Captain, all weapons are fully charged. We have the firepower to take on a fleet, but we're outnumbered." Daniels didn't need to hear the rest. She already knew that the Titanus Ascendant was humanity's last hope. But if they were going to survive, they needed more than just weapons. They needed strategy. "Start preparing all defensive systems," Daniels ordered. "We need to outthink them, not just outgun them." As the crew scrambled to execute her orders, Daniels paced back and forth, her mind working through 1,000 possible outcomes. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. It wasn't just about the Titanus Ascendant anymore. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity was not gone, that they were not weak. "We can't afford to make mistakes," Daniels murmured to herself. A voice broke through her thoughts. "Captain, we've detected incoming ships. At least 10. Lieutenant Miller reported, her face grim. "They're coming in fast." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The Coalition wasn't wasting time. They were sending their fleet, and they weren't coming to negotiate. "They won't get the chance," Daniel said, her tone icy. "Activate all defense systems. Prepare for impact." The Titanus Ascendant shuddered as its massive shields began to hum, the energy fields enveloping the ship. The crew could feel the power coursing through the ship's systems, the ship's pulse matching their own racing hearts. On the view screen, the distant shapes of the approaching Coalition fleet grew larger. They were unlike anything the human crew had ever seen. Sleek, advanced warships designed for speed and firepower. But the Titanus Ascendant was no ordinary ship. It was an ancient supercarrier, built for war on a scale the Coalition had never encountered. Daniels stood at the helm, her gaze unflinching. She wasn't just leading a crew. She was leading humanity's resurgence in the galaxy. If they survived this fight, everything would change. The Coalition would know, once and for all, that humanity was not a race to be dismissed or forgotten. "Get me a tactical readout," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. Lieutenant Miller quickly tapped the controls, bringing up a holographic map of the battlefield. The fleet was coming at them from all directions, but there was a weak spot in their formation. Daniels could see it immediately. "They've split their forces," she observed, studying the map. "Two fleets are converging from different angles. They're hoping to surround us." But Daniels had a plan. "Take us out of the center. Hard right. Then we hit them where they're weakest. Focus all fire on their flanks." "Aye, Captain," Miller responded, her fingers flying over the controls. The Titanus Ascendant slowly rotated in space, its massive engines firing up to thrust the ship at incredible speeds. The Coalition fleet was closing in, but the human ship moved with precision, faster than it seemed possible for such a massive vessel. "We're in position, Captain," Lieutenant Miller called. Daniels didn't hesitate. "Fire." The Titanus Ascendant roared to life as its weapon systems unleashed a barrage of firepower, its ancient cannons awakening from their slumber. The first wave of coalition ships erupted in fiery explosions as the human ships' massive guns tore through their defenses. The power of the Titanus Ascendant was devastating. Humanity had not forgotten how to wage war, not by a long shot. The remaining coalition ships hesitated for a moment, shocked by the force of the attack. But they quickly regrouped, closing in to press the attack. Daniels knew this would not be easy, but it was a beginning. The first strike had been made, and it had been deadly. "Direct hit on their flagship," shouted Lieutenant Miller, her voice filled with surprise. "They're retreating." Daniel's lips curled into a small smile, but it was short-lived. She knew the coalition wouldn't be so easily defeated. "Don't let up." "We pushed them back, hard." The Titanus Ascendant surged forward, its weapons continuing to unleash destruction on the now fractured coalition fleet. But the enemy was regrouping, preparing for another assault. The first round was a success, but the battle was far from over. "We've done some damage," Daniel said, watching the reports flood in. "But they're regrouping. We need to stay sharp." The battle outside raged on, but Daniels felt a deep sense of pride. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were fighting, and they were winning. "This is only the beginning," Captain Daniels whispered, her gaze fixed on the flickering stars outside. "They thought we were gone. Now they'll learn the truth." The coalition strikes back. The Titanus Ascendant had delivered a powerful blow to the coalition fleet, but the battle was far from over. The stars outside the ship flickered with the light of distant explosions as the Galactic Coalition began to regroup, preparing for a counterstrike. Captain Sarah Daniels stood at the helm, her eyes locked on the battlefield unfolding in front of her. The momentary victory had only given her crew a brief respite. The coalition was strong, and they weren't going to back down easily. "They've regrouped," Lieutenant Miller reported, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "They're coming at us again, with everything they have." Daniels knew this was coming. The first strike had been a surprise, but the coalition was an enemy with vast resources, and they wouldn't let one human warship stand in their way. They would return with everything they had, and this time they would be more prepared. "Prepare for their assault," Daniels ordered. "Get our shields up to full power and target their flagship. We need to cripple their command before they can reorganize." The Titanus Ascendant shook as the enemy ships approached, their engines burning brightly as they closed the distance. The coalition's fleet was massive, with dozens of warships, each one a formidable opponent, but none of them had the firepower of the Titanus Ascendant. Humanity's Supercarrier was designed for battle on a scale the coalition couldn't fully comprehend, and that was what made it so dangerous. "Shields at maximum," Lieutenant Miller called. "We're ready, Captain." Daniels took a deep breath, her mind racing as she prepared for the next wave. The first battle had been a victory, but it had only been the opening move. Now, the real test was about to begin. "Fire at will," Daniels commanded. The Titanus Ascendant unleashed its full arsenal once again, its weapons lighting up the void of space as they tore through the approaching ships. The massive Supercarrier's cannons fired in quick succession, launching devastating rounds that sent one coalition ship after another spiraling out of control. The Titanus Ascendant was a juggernaut, its firepower unmatched by any ship the coalition had ever encountered. But the coalition wasn't backing down. They adapted quickly, organizing their ships into smaller, faster groups to avoid the Titanus Ascendant's devastating blasts. They were changing tactics, trying to outmaneuver the massive human warship. "Damn it," Daniels muttered under her breath. "They're fast. They're trying to overwhelm our defenses." Lieutenant Miller's hands flew over the controls as she worked to track the rapidly moving coalition ships. "They're splitting up into smaller groups, Captain. It's harder to hit them now." Target their smaller ships, Daniels ordered, her voice firm. We can't let them get too close. We need to thin their numbers before they can close the gap. As the smaller coalition ships darted in and out of range, the Titanus Ascendant continued to fire. The crew of the ship worked like a well-oiled machine, their training and focus making them a formidable force. Each blast was precise, each shot timed perfectly to disrupt the enemy's formations. The battle raged on, but the Titanus Ascendant was holding its own. However, the battle was taking its toll. The Titanus Ascendant's shields flickered briefly as a powerful blast hit, sending a shockwave through the ship. The lights flickered, and the hum of the engines seemed to grow louder, as if the ship itself were groaning under the pressure. "Captain, our shields are at 50%, Lieutenant Miller reported, her voice tense. "We need to recharge them, or we won't last much longer." Daniels gritted her teeth. She knew they couldn't afford to slow down. The Titanus Ascendant had been designed to take damage, but it wasn't invincible. If the Coalition continued to press their advantage, they would eventually overwhelm the human ship. "Divert all non-essential power to the shields," Daniels ordered. "We need to buy ourselves some time." The crew worked quickly to reroute energy, pushing the ship's systems to their limits. The Titanus Ascendant shuddered again as another blast hit the shields, but this time they held. The enemy fleet was relentless, but the human ship was not giving in. "We've taken down several of their ships," Lieutenant Miller reported, her voice filled with determination. "But they're still coming." Daniels nodded. "We knew this wasn't going to be easy, but we're not stopping." Just as the Coalition seemed ready to strike again, a sudden alarm blared across the bridge. A new signature appeared on the ship's scanners. A large fleet, more powerful than anything the humans had seen so far. "What the hell is that?" Daniels muttered, staring at the blinking red signal. "Who's coming now?" The new fleet wasn't from the Coalition. It was something else, something unknown. "Captain, I'm detecting unknown ships," Lieutenant Miller said, her voice filled with surprise. "They're approaching fast. Should we engage them?" Daniel's eyes narrowed as she stared at the unfamiliar fleet. The timing of their arrival was too perfect to be a coincidence. Were they allies of the Coalition, or was something else at play? "Hold your fire," Daniels ordered. "Let's see who they are first. We may have bigger problems than we thought." The Titanus Ascendant powered up its engines once again, ready to face whatever came next. The Galactic Coalition was not the only threat in the galaxy, and if these new ships were enemies, humanity would need to prepare for yet another fight. The unknown fleet approaches. Captain Sarah Daniels stood at the helm of the Titanus Ascendant, her mind racing. The unknown fleet approaching from deep space had caught everyone by surprise. It wasn't part of the Galactic Coalition, and it didn't bear any recognizable insignia or markings. For a moment, the entire crew was on edge, unsure of what to expect. "Captain, they're getting closer," Lieutenant Miller said, her voice tight with anticipation. "Their fleet's movements are strange, like they're not following any standard formation." Daniels squinted at the holographic display, her gaze fixed on the strange fleet that was rapidly closing the distance. The ships were enormous, bigger than any Coalition ship she had seen. The alien ships were sleek and dark, unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Their design was both beautiful and terrifying, with sharp angles and glowing energy lines running along the hulls. "Are they hostile?" Daniels asked, trying to keep her voice steady. She couldn't afford to panic. Not now. Not when their survival depended on every decision. "Not sure, Captain," Miller replied. "They're not responding to our hails, but they're not firing either. It's like they're waiting for something." The tension in the room was palpable. The Titanus Ascendant was already battered from the previous battle, and now this mysterious fleet appeared out of nowhere. If they were enemies, the Titanus Ascendant wouldn't be able to survive another fight. At least not without reinforcements. But what if they weren't enemies? What if they were something far more dangerous, something far more intelligent? "I don't like this," Daniels muttered. She knew that space was full of dangers, but this situation felt different. There was a kind of stillness to it, as if everything was building up to something catastrophic. Suddenly, the main screen flickered, and a message appeared on the ship's communication system. It was in a language none of the crew recognized, flashing across the screen like an encrypted code. "Captain, I think this is their response," Lieutenant Miller said, her voice full of uncertainty. "What should we do?" Daniels hesitated. They had no way of decoding the message, but she couldn't ignore the possibility that it contained vital information. She stood, pacing in front of the command center, thinking quickly. The crew waited for her orders. "Send a request for translation," Daniels finally said, "and keep scanning them. Let's see if we can figure out who they are before we do anything rash." The crew went to work, scrambling to decrypt the message while monitoring the fleet. As the minutes ticked by, the crew remained on edge, knowing that any wrong move could lead to disaster. Daniels felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The Titanus Ascendant might be humanity's most powerful weapon, but it was also their only hope. If she miscalculated, it could cost them everything. Then, just as suddenly as the tension had started, a new image appeared on the main screen. The unknown fleet opened up a transmission, and this time, it wasn't a coded message, it was a live broadcast. A figure appeared on the screen. The being was humanoid, but its features were unlike any human or alien the crew had ever seen. Its skin was a pale, almost translucent shade, with glowing veins running beneath the surface. The eyes were the most unsettling part. They were vast, black, and filled with an intelligence that seemed to pierce straight through the crew. "Captain Daniels," the figure said in perfect English, its voice cold and smooth, yet unmistakably filled with power. "We have been watching you." The words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. There was no anger in the voice, no malice. But there was something even more unsettling, a quiet, calculating authority. "You have shown strength," the figure continued. "Your ship is impressive, but strength alone is not enough. We will see if you are worthy of what is to come." Daniels stared at the screen, her mind racing. Who were these beings? Why were they speaking English? And what did they mean by worthy of what is to come? "We do not wish to fight you, Captain," the figure continued, its gaze unwavering. "But understand this, we do not bow to any force. We are ancient. We have seen the rise and fall of many empires, and we will see the fall of the Galactic Coalition. But the question is, will you stand with us?" The figure's eyes glowed brighter for a moment, and Daniels felt an overwhelming presence pushing against her. It was as if the being was testing her, probing her very thoughts, searching for weakness. "What do you want from us?" Daniels asked, her voice steady despite the growing pressure she felt. She had to remain strong. She couldn't show fear now. "You are a part of something greater," the figure responded. "Your fleet, your technology, it is of great value. Join us, and together, we will reshape the galaxy." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun. The screen went black, and the crew stood in stunned silence. The figure's words echoed in Daniel's mind, each one laced with an unsettling promise. "Captain, what do we do?" Lieutenant Miller asked, her voice barely a whisper. Daniels took a deep breath, steadying herself. The offer was tempting. The promise of power, of reshaping the galaxy. It could mean a future unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. But could they trust these beings? And what did they truly want with humanity? "Get me a full analysis of their fleet," Daniels ordered. "I want to know everything about these ships, and prepare for any outcome. We don't know if they are allies or enemies yet, but we are not making any decisions without knowing who we're dealing with." She turned back to the screen, her mind racing with possibilities. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had just entered a new phase of the galactic conflict. Whether they would be allies or enemies with these mysterious beings was something only time would tell. A choice that changes everything. The Titanus Ascendant hung in the cold void of space, its crew caught between a decision that could change the fate of humanity. Captain Daniels paced the bridge, her mind working through the possibilities. The alien fleet was still out there, waiting for a response. And though their intentions remained unclear, one thing was certain: they had power. More power than any force humanity had ever encountered. "Captain," Lieutenant Miller said, her voice tight with the weight of the moment, "we've analyzed their ships. They're using technology that seems far beyond anything the Galactic Coalition or even us have. It's almost like they've been hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right time to make their move." Daniels glanced over at the screen, where the fleet of dark ships loomed ominously. Their sleek, imposing forms sent a chill through her. Every inch of them seemed designed for one thing: dominance, and the offer they had made to join them had left a bitter taste in Daniel's mouth. She wasn't sure if the promise of reshaping the galaxy was one she wanted to accept. "Are they the same as the ones that attacked the Coalition?" Daniels asked, trying to piece together the scattered information. "No, they're different," Miller replied. "The technology is advanced, but it's not the same. These ships seem almost ancient, like they've been out of the fight for centuries, waiting to re-enter the fray." Daniels nodded, but her heart was heavy. The crew had already seen the devastation the Galactic Coalition could bring. They had faced battles and lost allies, their ship barely surviving after each engagement. Could humanity really trust these unknown beings, who seemed to know more about them than they did about themselves? "Lieutenant, send a message to the fleet. Tell them we need more time to consider their offer. We're not making any hasty decisions," Daniels said. Miller hesitated before typing the message. As soon as it was sent, Daniels turned her attention to the star system ahead of them. The fleet's ships, with their glowing energy lines and dark metallic hulls, seemed to draw power from the very stars themselves. This wasn't just about the Titanus Ascendant or even humanity anymore. It was about the future of the galaxy. She turned to Commander Hawkins, who had been silently watching the situation unfold. Hawkins was always a realist, someone who saw the bigger picture. If anyone could offer insight, it would be him. "Commander, what's your take on all of this?" Daniels asked. Hawkins straightened in his chair, his eyes locked on the screen displaying the mysterious fleet. "It's hard to say, Captain. They're offering power, yes, but power always comes with a price. The question is whether they want an ally, or if they want a puppet." Daniels looked at him, her brow furrowed in thought. He was right. Whatever they did, there was no going back. If they accepted the offer, they could gain an upper hand in the galactic struggle. But at what cost? What would humanity lose by aligning with such ancient and powerful beings? Suddenly, the screen flickered to life again, and the same figure from the earlier transmission appeared. This time, there was no greeting, no formalities. The figure's eyes, glowing with intelligence, seemed colder than before, more calculating. "You have made your decision, Captain Daniels." The figure's voice echoed across the bridge, sending a ripple of tension through the crew. "We're still evaluating our options," Daniels replied, standing tall in the face of this unknown entity. Her voice was firm, though she could feel her heart racing. "We need more information before we make a choice." The figure seemed unfazed, its gaze unblinking. "I understand your hesitation, but know this: the Galactic Coalition is crumbling. They are too fractured, too weak to maintain control. You, humans, are more capable than you realize. You've already shown your strength by surviving the battles you fought. Join us, and you will not only survive, you will thrive." The words hung heavy in the air, each one seemingly designed to sway them toward acceptance. Daniels could almost feel the weight of them pressing on her shoulders. She had seen firsthand what the Coalition was capable of, but this was different. The figure's calm, assured demeanor only deepened the sense of danger lurking just beneath the surface. "You promise power," Daniels said, her voice steady, but her mind alert. "But we've already seen what happens when power is misused. What guarantee do we have that you're different?" The figure's eyes flared brighter, as if considering her words. "I offer no guarantees, only the truth. The truth is, you are standing at a crossroads, Captain Daniels. The future of the galaxy is within your grasp. It is up to you to decide which path you will take." Before Daniels could respond, the transmission ended. The figure's face faded into the black void of space, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The weight of the choice ahead seemed even heavier now. "Captain, we have the option to respond. Should we engage in further negotiations?" Miller asked. Daniels stared at the empty screen. The crew waited in tense silence. The decision was hers to make, and she knew that whatever path they chose would lead them into uncharted territory. "I don't know yet," Daniels admitted. "But one thing is certain, we can't stand by and do nothing. We need to prepare for whatever comes next." The lights on the bridge flickered as if in response, casting long shadows on the faces of the crew. The Titanus Ascendant was alone in deep space, caught between two powerful forces, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The battle for the future. The Titanus Ascendant drifted in the vast emptiness of space, surrounded by the alien fleet that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. The tension was thick in the air, as every crew member knew that the next few minutes would shape the future of humanity and the galaxy itself. Captain Daniels stood at the center of the bridge, her gaze fixed on the distant stars, her mind racing. They had just received an ultimatum from the mysterious fleet: join their cause or face annihilation. The clock was ticking, and there was no time left to deliberate. "Captain, the fleet is ready to engage," Commander Hawkins said, his voice grim. "They've made their move. They're not going to wait for us to make a decision." Daniel's eyes narrowed. The alien fleet, despite their promises, had shown their true colors. They were not offering power, they were demanding compliance. Humanity's survival was at stake, and she had no intention of giving in without a fight. "Prepare the warships. We're not surrendering. We will show them what humanity is capable of," Daniels ordered, her voice cold and unwavering. "Get our weapons online and prepare to engage." Lieutenant Miller quickly moved to her station, her fingers dancing across the console. "Weapons are online, Captain. We're ready to fire." The Titanus Ascendant's engines roared to life as it moved into formation with the other human warships. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, and the crew could feel the weight of the decision pressing on them. A few moments later, the alien fleet's ships activated their weapons, powerful energy beams shooting toward the human vessels. It was the beginning of the battle. "Brace for impact," Daniels shouted, gripping the rail tightly as the Titanus Ascendant shook from the incoming fire. The ship's shields held strong, but the force of the blast rattled the crew to their core. The crew members scrambled to respond, firing back at the advancing alien ships with all the power they had. The battle was fierce, the sound of energy blasts and explosions deafening as the two fleets collided in the vast expanse of space. The human ships, despite their seemingly outdated technology, held their ground with surprising strength. Each warship fired its weapons with precision, their tactics proving more than a match for the aliens' advanced technology. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were fighting back. "Captain, the alien fleet is regrouping," Miller reported. "They're planning a concentrated strike on our central formation." Daniel's heart raced as she realized the enormity of the situation. The alien fleet was powerful, but humanity had something they didn't: determination, unity, and a fierce will to survive. They would fight until their last breath, and they would win. "Redirect all fire to their flagship," Daniels commanded. "Take out their leader, and the rest will fall." The Titanus Ascendant launched its most powerful weapon, a concentrated beam of energy that struck the alien flagship head-on. The explosion was blinding, and the alien ship erupted into a burst of light. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then the alien fleet scattered, with their flagship destroyed. The remaining ships faltered, their coordination breaking down. The human fleet, now emboldened by their victory, pressed the attack. "We're winning," Hawkins said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The aliens are retreating." Daniels stood tall, her gaze never leaving the chaos unfolding on the view screen. "We may have won this battle, but the war isn't over. We've made a statement. Humanity will no longer be ignored. We've proven we have the strength to survive, and we've shown them what happens when you underestimate us." The crew let out a collective cheer, but Daniels remained focused. There was still work to be done. The aliens might retreat for now, but they would return. And when they did, humanity would be ready. The battle wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about sending a message. Humanity had risen from the ashes of their own wars, forged in the fires of survival. The Titanus Ascendant had become the symbol of that strength, and humanity's legacy would be one of resilience, unity, and power. As the alien fleet retreated, Captain Daniels took a deep breath. The galaxy had just witnessed the awakening of humanity's true potential, and this was only the beginning.